In this video, I will argue that racial discrimination is embedded in British educational policy through the current education curriculum. This is a curriculum that preserves whiteness as an unchallenged norm and contains a hidden curriculum that praises and validates white middle-class values and behaviours. In addition, this hidden curriculum frames Black and minority ethnic pupils as subjects of exclusion from academic aspiration and success. All of these factors result in racial inequalities of outcome in education. I will argue the only way to solve this problem is through a transformational solution, where the existing education curriculum structure is unequivocally abandoned and is then rebuilt from a new set of anti-elitist, anti-racist principles. I am looking at this problem from a socialist critical perspective. This stance argues for an egalitarian notion of equality and focuses on achieving a socially just education system by aiming for more equal educational outcomes. I will also examine this problem through the lens of critical race theory. The principles set by critical race theory argue racism is an endemic, normalised feature of society and views educational policy as a process that is moulded to benefit the dominant white population and maintain the status quo. The work of critical race theory recognises racism as deeply rooted in Western educational policy, and the normalisation of this is the underlying cause of racial inequality. The outline of the current curriculum taught in British classrooms today was introduced with the 1988 Education Reform Act. The increased use of high-stakes testing, the publication of performance statistics, and a variety of other changes introduced market principles into education. Once the economic agenda was introduced as a rationale for curriculum development, any concern for heterogeneity, and as Thompson eloquently argued, debates about what knowledge is important, to whom, why, how, and in whose interests knowledge is constructed, and how these issues might be intimately connected with matters of equity and justice are sidelined in favour of a simplistic, standardised body of homogeneous knowledge that is easily measured and comparable. This standardised body of homogeneous knowledge contains what many academics label as a hidden curriculum. This plays an important role in retaining whiteness as an unquestioned norm by preserving and communicating a set of values and culturally loaded expectations associated with the conservative white elite. The hidden curriculum is expressed through pedagogic relationships, school arrangements, and the rewards and punishments typical of daily life in schools, and serves to reproduce the economic, social, and educational inequalities in society within schools and classrooms instead of exposing them and challenging them. In doing this, the hidden curriculum categorises some cultures, attitudes, lifestyles, and ways of behaving as praiseworthy and being characteristic of a child that is more likely to be encouraged in a school setting and expected to have academic success. White middle-class ways of walking, talking, diction, vocabulary, and their ways of interacting with authority figures such as teachers tend to be praised and validated by schools. Conversely, other ways of being and behaviour are not viewed as tolerantly. Instead, they are often regarded as regrettable, alien, or even threatening, and suitable subjects for exclusion from academic expectation and success. The continuous framing of some pupils' cultural or social backgrounds and ethnicity as challenging or problematic in terms of ability and behaviour portrays a suggestion of deficit thinking, implying these pupils' academic motivation and cognitive capabilities are limited. From a critical race theory perspective, this is extremely problematic, as it shifts the blame for lack of educational success onto the individual child or their family and culture, thereby denying systemic factors. In addition, although this hidden curriculum is not explicit over which races and cultures are presumed to have deficits, The label is far more likely to be assigned to pupils whose experiences and appearance are perceived by teachers to lie outside white majority norms. Consequently, the black-white achievement gap is not regarded as a product of a curriculum that is informed by white cultural values, which preserves whiteness as an unchallenged norm and results in the marginalisation of other cultural practices and perspectives. Instead, it is a failure of the individual child. Reform within the current curriculum is insufficient to solve today's educational racial inequalities because the fundamental structure and purpose of the education system would remain intact. A transformational solution is required where the existing curriculum is discarded and the process is restarted from a different set of radical left organising principles built around achieving a vastly more equal educational outcome. Any curriculum which ignores racism, sexism, the exploitation of workers, and other forms of oppression supports the status quo. We need this new curriculum to be anti-discriminatory and make schools a centre of critical debate. The common curriculum would be varied and rich, allowing themes of human and natural processes to be explored in a range of ways through critical discourse. It will show the importance of the call to context by going into detail on the lived experiences of minoritised peoples as a defence against colourblind and sanitised analyses generated by neoliberal discourses. So all pupils will recognise that people from different social locations have different understandings and perspectives. The common curriculum also needs to include an understanding of whiteness through the study of white supremacy. Critical whiteness studies will enable pupils and teachers alike to look inwards at their own racial positioning and recognise how their past life experiences, assumptions, and beliefs function as powerful filters through which they interpret their school, teachers, peers, and society itself. In addition, it enables pupils to look outwards and understand how education and other social policy assumes and defends white supremacy through the priorities it sets, the beneficiaries it privileges, and the outcomes it produces, as Gilbert articulately notes. In addition to this common curriculum, there will be a new hidden curriculum, not one that preserves whiteness as an unquestioned norm, but one that is egalitarian and anti-elitist for all pupils. Through the common and hidden curriculum, learners will become more aware of oppression, develop critical consciousness, and become subjects rather than objects of politics. In order to teach this new egalitarian curriculum correctly, critical pedagogy needs to be used. For critical pedagogy, teachers should be critical, transformative intellectuals who encourage their pupils to critically evaluate a range of salient ideologies and perspectives while showing a commitment to egalitarianism. There needs to be an environment of teaching and pupil learning that fosters critical awareness and the confidence and ability needed to challenge social injustice and feel empowered to act in defence of the oppressed. Critical pedagogy can dissolve into liberal, progressive, child-centred individualism extremely easily. This happens when schools try to make the curriculum relevant by incorporating mainstream multiculturalism that does not promote a critical gaze or seek to move beyond the felt needs of relevance. Due to the systemic and structural racism embedded in society, the efforts made by teachers to form a culturally responsive educational environment often creates problems and causes tensions as racial discrimination and othering persists. This is because this model often reifies culture, making it a bounded, knowable entity that is congruent and delineable with one particular race. This form of identity politics massively oversimplifies race identity and fails to recognise its complexity and the multiplicity that is born from many affiliations. Gilborn argues this anti-racist multicultural education that the social, democratic, liberal progressive political perspective promotes is in danger of becoming the worst kind of multiculturalism, which is used simply as a frequently cited slogan, free from any critical subject matter, and leaving the deep-rooted mechanisms of racist marginalisation and oppression that shapes the education system untouched. In solving the problem of racial inequality in education and the expulsion of protecting whiteness in the curriculum, we need to make sure this is not the solution, as it continues to obscure the structural systemic racism that the socialist critical perspective insists on exposing and ultimately changing. Overall, the current normative homogeneous curriculum and assessment framework formulated around market principles ensures the naturalisation of whiteness as an objective against which other races are judged and compared. The systemic racism subtly concealed in the British educational curriculum needs to be exposed, acknowledged, and changed. However, merely tinkering with the curriculum by making it more relevant is not enough, as the fundamental structure, scale, and purpose of the curriculum will remain unchanged. A transformational solution is needed, with a new curriculum that is anti-discriminatory, which makes schools centres of critical debate and encourages inward and outward reflection.